Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tech Leaders Unplugged. Today, we're getting unplugged with Willetta Ar-Rahmaan from IBM, and she is a DevOps automation, go-to-market, product adoption, growth, all kinds of stuff at IBM. So we're going to get to hear all about her activities, and she's been there over 30 years. That's an amazing career to have all at a prestigious company like IBM. So we're going to talk a lot about DevOps. We're going to talk about testing and how testing, automation, DevOps, all of that kind of comes together into this mix of what we call DevOps that's been around for about 10 years now or so. So thank you so much, Letty, for joining us today. And before we jump in the topic, just introduce yourself a little bit about what you do at IBM, and then we'll jump into the topic.
All right, Wade, thank you very much. So one of the things I want to do, I love accessibility and working with, accessibility testing. So I want to give an introduction to the accessibility community for those who are on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. So I am a Black female with locks, with a brown background, and I have a black shirt, would have the IBM logo with our Pan-African logo on the left side of my shirt. And I have a tan background with a white, I have a white little blanket, keeps me warm on the back of my chair. And over to my right shoulder, you will see an IBM. Just a little nod over on the other side there. So that's my introduction to the accessibility community, to just to say hello to you all. So I am Willetta Ar-Rahmaan. Actually, I go by Letty Ar-Rahmaan. I am over 30 years I've been in IBM. I started my career as a contractor, as an admin in Milford, Connecticut. For many who don't know, it starts in Milford, Connecticut for several years. And then I moved on to North Carolina and finished up my degree at North Carolina Central University, and started working before I finished that degree, I worked at IBM again as another contractor through another contract agency. And through those 2 years, those 4 years that I've worked, I was working basically as an admin support. Until I got my foot into the door in 1996. And then I've been at IBM since January since 1996. Other than that, I still live in North Carolina, so I migrated to the South. And my career started actually in development, coming into what we call the Insurance Technology Resource Center. And now I have climbed that ladder from developer to tester, over into the DevOps automation, where we have our as a product manager for tests, and now I am in the go-to-market areas, making sure that we're doing product skills, which is enablement, making sure that our products are being adopted, and there's growth with our business partners and our clients as well. Our products are the DevOps automation. We have 5 pillars of that automation. And that's plan. It's plan, create, test, accelerate, and the last one is launch. So those are the areas that we are covering within our DevOps space.
Great introduction. So I'm excited to hear about all the stuff you're doing there with the DevOps in IBM, and how a big company that's so well known for your technology, how you all approach DevOps. Because we have open source tools and we have commercial
Right.
tools, and it's a whole mixed bag out there of how people accomplish their DevOps. So the topic we have is stumbled into testing as a developer. How that's kind of the opposite, really, of how most people, land into their IT space. Testing, at least in the US, is often seen as the introductory to
Hmm.
the whole product development space. Even if you have a college degree and been developing, you usually come in the door as a tester, get your feet wet, as a developer. As a tester, and then you start to get to progress into the developer seat, right?
Right.
You did
Right.
it the opposite, it looks like.
I
So,
did.
you know, um, interesting to hear how that happened, because, um, you know, as a testing company, we have people their whole careers have been in testing, and
Hmm.
there's people that absolutely love to test products. They're the investigators or the people that like to break stuff and see the response of, trying to do the crazy stuff. And
Right.
that's kind of an exciting thing. And other people really want to just build. So we need both, obviously, very much.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about the topic, how you chose that, being it is a little bit different than how some people come into testing.
Well, one of the yeah. Okay. So Wade, one of the things that happened is that um, I came to Charlotte in 1998, and I ended up in what we call the insurance resource technology group. And it was a brand new organization within IBM, and they were looking for, drum roll, COBOL developers. So I have a background in COBOL, actually very, very much so, COBOL and JCL, and I also worked at a couple other companies using that COBOL skill. And so when I came in 1998, came to Charlotte in '98, that's what they were looking for. So they needed developers from there. At that point, we really weren't talking about testing or anything else from there. But it was a few years later that we started migrating into what we call what are APIs today, but we call hub and adapter work back then. And during that time frame, they were looking for those who had the ability to do some testing. And of course, I just volunteered. I'll say, okay, so what do I need to do? Well, you just need to test this and test the parameters and make sure the requirements are there. And I was like, oh, this is not too bad. It's just like reading requirements for development and just making sure everything works. And then I started, oh, this is fun. And I started doing a little more development and got into, Java and C++. And I was like, this is not for me after we got to orient all to that side of development. And then I ended up working on a project. So in my career, I've had well over 30 projects within IBM from that time frame, and I've covered from one side of finance, one side of insurance, and I've been all over the country. I had quite a few engagements on the West Coast, from Seattle down, and all of those had started out with tests. So my first real testing project was in Los Angeles, California. I will stay out there for 3 weeks and I will come home for two. And at that time, I was taught how to do a little bit of middleware testing using MQ, and from there I kept going with testing. So I realized that the middleware testing was, oh, this isn't too bad. I could still do some of development work. I can still configure. I could still do look at a few more things, peeking in the queues and getting things together, but also having the ability to trace where issues are coming up. And so that's one of the areas that I fell into, and I stumbled into it because I really wasn't trying to stay as a tester. I was trying to go and move out and do some more development because I love to do website development and database development. But when when I started doing a little bit more, staying out there for about 6 months, back and forth, I realized that I started to like this more because now I said, oh, testing talk test touches all areas of the software delivery life cycle. Oh, so I can do database. I could do now web is coming up. I was able to, oh, integration testing. Oh, I didn't know much about this. So that's how it all kind of started. And then from there, I went seriously developing maybe about 6 years later, and strongly went into tests. So I did a lot of manual testing, a lot of component testing. Then I started moving around into integration testing, and then of course, UI and UX testing as well. And then from that point there, I got into automation testing, and it was the last 7 years, I came into automation testing. It's something I wanted to do since like 2010, but you can't go into automation testing without having some experience. And so, so most of the time you didn't get the experience, but you start working and looking at what you can do. So one of my projects out in now this is telling where was I this time? Washington State. Um, of course, I can't tell you all the names of the clients, but I was out in Washington State, and they were doing a new doing some automation, and they needed a test lead, and they brought me in and then said, "Well, this is about using UFT." And I looked, I don't know how to use UFT, and being very honest about it, and they was like, don't worry, you can learn. And actually, and I did. I sat down with the client and we sat down with our development team. That's offshore. This is an offshore development team. And I learned how to do some automation with UFT at that time. Then from there, I started doing small projects with a little bit of rational functional tester, which is now DevOps test within our DevOps automation platform portfolio. And so I did a little there and then started working with some of the other rational tools at that time, which are now our DevOps tool from there. And I stayed in that for maybe about a year and went back to testing, became a uh, business analyst for a few years. So I've kind of covered the gamut of being at IBM. And then in about 5 years ago, I got back into automation and started doing some more work with another company in the state of Michigan. And from there, then I moved on and moved over to the DevOps automation team just a couple years ago. And so that has been, so it's taking all of the knowledge and all the skills and all the work that I've done with testing and brought it into DevOps and just to see it at a different level from beginning to end of the software delivery lifecycle. So that's a short journey.
That's great. So one thing I really appreciate is that the test automation was a very, very important part of the implementation of DevOps.
Hmm.
And I'm sure much of our community knows that term because it's been around now a good, I don't know, 10, 12 years, I guess that term's been getting kicked around. Um, but yeah, I mean, for folks that just come straight away at DevOps, they see it more the infrastructure side, the terraforming, all of the stuff about deploying, releasing, and sometimes the test automation piece is not given the priority that it absolutely has because
Right.
the last thing you want to do is automate pushing bad code.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your perspective because you do work in that suite of tools, the Rational suite that came into, gosh, that's probably 15 years ago, right? When they bought the
It
Rational.
came it came into Rational came into IBM in 2003. It's been
Wow, so
over
even more,
23.
almost 20 years. Wow.
Right. And so out of those, we have a couple of products that came through.
Mhm.
That Rational came in 2003, and then Green Hat came into IBM as well, which gave us virtualization
Mm.
I think around 2010. So I mean, I love, like I said, I love tests, and I do need to correct because one of the pillars I said was launch. It's not. I'm so sorry. It is actually deploy.
Okay.
So we did a rebranding of everything this year, and I just wanted to make sure that is correct going out. But because of those tools that were out during that time frame, the DevOps automation team has those products, and we have starting to infuse AI within them. We have the ability to do performance testing, and you're able to see some insights from tests. I could talk more about our test portfolio even more, but I also, even today we do have a new release that actually came out today. So that is something ironic that we are going to talk about testing and DevOps on the day that we have a release, right? Um, so one of the things about this, in this space is quality. Quality is one of the key things that are happening in DevOps. We talk about that code, yeah, the code can come in, changes can happen. But when we start looking at DevOps, you're trying to really look at how efficient is your entire um, DevOps integration from plan, if those who use Jira, from there all the way through the entire life cycle to see how are things coming together. Um, and the quality is what we're testing for. I mean, it's not just, oh, we're just testing data, but we want to know, not only test data, but we want to test the quality. Do we have bottlenecks? Are there some bottlenecks? Do we know what is holding us up? What's some areas that we can work through to create more efficient, give more efficient practices or tools to the developers? So DevOps is just more than just tools. We need to look at it more so as what is the business need, um, and the business and what they're looking for. They're looking for efficiency. Still looking to save money. They are looking to have quality and more deployment. Not because you remember during the waterfall days, you got to go through and check every gate first before a product can go out the door, and that's taking, like, it could take months, it could take a year before you can get an upgrade to that product. So now we're in the space of, I will say, also this space of agile development, and then I call it agile testing as well. You are able to have more of your code and more releases out quicker, instead of waiting 6, 8, 12 months before you release something. And now people, if we notice today that we see releases coming out, even from software releases coming out from even our phones, it could be every week or it could be every day from there. But testing is still the key. Many people think, oh, we can just bypass testing. Oh, it's developed, and we'll just toss it over the wall and that's it. And that's when you start finding out that your customers are saying this is not good. So you have customer feedback that's tied into what the the executives are looking for, those stakeholders, because they're trying to make sure, do we have what we need to develop, and do we have what we need to take care of our customers on the other end? So that's where that's one of the areas that we're starting with, and that's happening within IBM. We make sure we take care of our customers on the back end, and we make sure the developers have what they need on the front end. But we're also still working in between, because there's a lot more that goes into just developing a product. And those are the things that I've learned. I mean, a lot of the go-to-market campaigns, and working with the sales team and understanding what is necessary. So those are just a few things to kind of get us started, Wade.
So you brought up AI in there, and
Yes.
I know that AI is very much gaining popularity in infrastructure management,
Mm-hmm.
um, auto creation of environments for scalability. You have Kubernetes and all those things that you spin it up just as it's needed, and it's used, and then if it's idle for a while, it closes that down to save some power and all those kinds of things. And AI is, and then layer security on top of that too. And So how do you see AI, penetrating deeper into DevOps, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years? Because I know it's a little slower. We see all the chat GPT and all that stuff.
Right.
It seems like every day there's somebody new releasing some new AI on the LLMs. But really AI is just way bigger than just, I think what people have experienced in the last year. So tell me a
Right.
little bit, without revealing the secrets over there at IBM
I
of the
will.
future, just kind of just generally, where do you see AI touching our DevOps space? And of course, test automation has its own flavor of AI.
Right, right. So when we start thinking about AI, most of the times people only look at it from the perspective of the customer. And we know in the space that we're in, we are enterprise. So we're looking at this from E to E, enterprise or business or B2B from there. So what we're starting to see is, of course, bottlenecks, identifying where you can save money, where can you save time. You could also you're looking at AI from the perspective of how is performance is really happening, and not only in, just part of your application, but how is it working throughout the entire application. We know that there are areas where people are wanting to be able to create um, test cases or test scripts from the web rather than manually. So maybe AI is being used at at that point where it's looking at the application and suggesting what test scripts that needs to be run.
Mhm.
Um, Also, when you start looking down the road, you're starting to say, how can AI continue to integrate with other applications or other tools that are being used in the DevOps lifecycle? um, when you start thinking about, the planning phase, how can that requirements, UX design, how is all of that coming together, and we are able to create it using AI without having to go write it out, maybe using in a way that you'll talk about the quality of what is happening in the space, but you're also looking at, I'll say like Adobe, one of the Adobe products I've used a while, and that we had to continually change those requirements. But the problem what has happened is that those requirements did not translate and get down to developers, or it may not made it to the test team, or it may have not made it to the UAT team, and then we may test on a wrong side of it. But AI would be able to help to go through and help you single out and say, okay, you have coverage here, but you don't need more coverage over here. So when there are new tests are being created or changes in the environment, that's one thing. Um, One of the areas that people will always ask is, can we use AI to stand up an environment? That would be something to do in the future as we're looking through it. How can AI stand up environments without you having to go configure it yourself? It'll just automatically say, "Oh, this is what we're looking for. This is what we need. This is the industry that we're working in," and so you'll have that. And then the other side is also working with tools that would accelerate the building of test cases, or the building of not only just test cases, but the building from the entire life cycle all the way through release, and also for the feedback loop. How is that feedback loop is coming through? And that's, we all know that's important when it comes down to development. For DevOps, we want to know how much of this information is coming back to the development team, and how are they using that from there. Because right now we can work on working through creating this DevOps pieces of, oh, this is where my code broke. Okay. And can we go back and investigate the historical data of that information? So we know those are coming, but right now we're all working on trying to get AI in that space so that we can work and help our customers, our clients just as much.
Great response. So, it's already getting close to the end of our show. Yes. Uh, But this is where I like to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about your career. And
Okay.
I always look into profiles and see what's kind of unique. And of course, right away, the 30 years at a single company, that was our parents. I think my dad had two jobs his whole career, two different employers. And but that's not as common today,
Right.
especially in my career. I think I had a 10-year span at one company, and then 3 to 5 years. I always, if I take a job, minimum 3 years, I got to commit to that, and then sometimes it's still 3, 5, 7, whatever. But you did 30 years at IBM. And so I think a lot of people, they do the job hopping to one, they feel their value is changed.
Hmm.
They want to have new experiences, their interests in technology
Right.
change. And one thing with a big company like IBM, being at Accenture for 10 years, is you can job hop within the company. You don't have to leave the organization at these big ones, which is really nice. That's not always the case with smaller companies.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about this 30-year journey and how you, one, kept yourself interested, kept your employer interested in you for promotions and job changes to keep up with where you wanted to go with your career,
Okay.
all at the same location. Share that a little bit with us.
Wow. So wait, it's like I said, it started, my journey started as, and I'm going to start really young. When I was 9 years old, working I wasn't nine working. When I was nine, I was in elementary school, and we had my next door neighbor worked for IBM. I didn't know what IBM stood for, did not know what IBM did. All I knew is that when she took myself and her daughter to the office, that I wanted to work for this company. I didn't know a thing.
Hmm.
Um, but from that point there, I was like, okay, that's my determination for the rest of my life. I'm going to work for IBM. So I ended up as I said, when I was still in Connecticut, I was working as an admin assistant, executive admin assistant in the early 90s. So I've been around. And then when I moved down to North Carolina to finish up school, I went back as another executive admin assistant in IBM. So that kind of covered 4 years of me working within IBM in this 28, the 32 years I call it. Um, and in 90, I came in 96 as an intern. And then never left. So because I didn't leave, my manager at that time, I was in the RTP area, but really, technically, I was really working in Raleigh on Six Forks Road for those who know it. I was there for the first 2 years of my career as an intern. I was finishing up my college degree, and so when I got officially hired and came in, it was 98, and pulled those years. So I didn't lose any experience from there and brought those years in. So one of the things that I started learning, and I've learned that over the years, is be open. Be open to learn things new, and be open and be ready to volunteer. You don't get here without volunteering and not and taking a chance and taking an opportunity. Even if you could say, I can't do it, someone will always be present with you and be there to help you through it. um, I have, as I said, I've covered the country. I've worked in Ohio, New Jersey, New York, Maine, Massachusetts, uh, Florida, Georgia. See, Washington, LA. Oh, I went to LA 3 times. Well, LA 1 time, California 3 times. Let me pull that together. And then quite a few in between. And these were customer facing. It wasn't all virtual. Um, and I traveled weekly, every week to wherever we needed to go. And that was one of the things that I try to help with some young adults as you're coming through and starting your career. Let's start about thinking about what you want to do, because when you come out of college, you have one idea what you want to do, but then once you get into corporate, you'll start looking at there are other opportunities, and there's something else that may say, "Oh, I didn't know that I can use this with my computer science engineering degree." And that's what I ended up doing is just I just kind of started going around to things. I sat with mentors, sat with some of the leadership, the executives, just to listen in on what is it that I can learn, what I can do better. The other side was, if you know that you are looking for a promotion, find out what it is that that next level is going to be about,
Mhm.
and then work your way into that promotion and work your way. Do I have those skills already set up? Or am I missing those skills? Let me go pull it all together and go through it and say, these are the skills that I need to work on, or these are the areas that I know I'm strong in, but where can I um, help myself to be a little bit stronger in those areas? Who do I need to reach out to? And that's when we get to that mentoring space, because you want to be able to work with people who would be able to speak about your name. We hear this all the time: speak your name in rooms that you are not present.
Mhm.
And that has happened for me. All of the managers that I've had, I've been challenged. They've gave me challenging assignments. Um, and I went in and did that work that was there. But also I realized that I was good at fixing things. So when you find out you're good at fixing certain things and you know how you can, and building relationships, you take your strengths and you move that along with you as you're learning new. So I continue to learn education. I'm not short of education. As of today, I realized I found that I had over 900 classes.
Mm.
And you learn so much from job to job, project to project, but then you have to figure out, how do we take that and transfer those skills to the next place? And those are the areas that you'll start working in. So coming in from that development stage, and then finding, stumbling my way into tests, because I'm like, this is not for me. But once I realized it really was for me, I kind of took off, because I found my niche. And that's what we need to do, is find that niche. And opportunities are always around. And so I would say, go with the next opportunity that you can, even if it's a lateral move.
Yep.
Lateral moves are not bad. Take it and then grow with it. So Wade, that's my story.
So my takeaways are, um, be willing and open-minded to try things that you may even be uncomfortable with.
Hmm.
My little plug is, I've always said, do the stuff the other people won't do, because that generates so much value to your boss, because it's like, hey, no volunteers. And if you jump in there and you tend to keep doing all the things, you learn skills, and
Yes.
you're learning skills, and they're very well rounded, because if you're only doing the stuff you want to do, you're missing out on the other pieces of those puzzles, right?
Right.
And then third, always do, if you want a promotion, do that job before. Don't wait to get the promotion to get paid that money.
Right.
Always work at a level above you,
Yes.
because like you said, they're going to talk about you when you're not in the room, and it's going to be like, hey, yeah, I have this project over here that she jumped right in, and I know you're looking at her for this project, man. Talk about a self-start. Those are the things you want them to, and they're only going to experience those if you do the things that the boss worried about. And they worry about the stuff that's not going to get done a lot of times, as much
Right.
as the stuff that has to get done.
Right.
So it's a whole picture. And so thank you so much for that, because that's the
You're
kind of
welcome.
stuff that I think people that like the company they're in, but they're feeling a little bit, I wouldn't call it bored, but just not fulfilled as much. Man, there's just so many places you can go. And like you said, lateral movement. You want to be the
Hmm.
CEO, you got to do lateral movements your whole career.
Right.
Sales, marketing, production. I mean, you have to touch all of that to be able to be an executive. And
Very much so. Very much
you
so.
know,
And learn. I mean, those areas are still, soft skills are still being used. People keep forgetting that. I don't know. You do need those soft skills, because if they're not there, how are you going to communicate better with clients, and also
absolutely.
with your team as well? So,
All right. Well, I'm going to quickly introduce the next week's show, if that's okay, and then we're going to wrap.
all right.
Next week is Deepika Kale, staff software engineer at Guardian Health. It's Wednesday, July 3rd, so right before the holiday. Make sure you come and get a little bit of tech before you go into the holiday. And so that'll be on the 3rd, traditional time. So join us next week, another live episode. And thank you so much, Letta, for joining with us, talking about testing, DevOps, and how to grow your career within a big company like IBM. So
Yes.
appreciate your insights so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Wade. Same to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.